Hello everyone and welcome to Voice It Youth Talk Show, the youth talk show that has got everyone talking, where we discuss the day-to-day challenges that are faced by the youth that they're not as comfortable discussing with their friends or their parents. Today we are continuing with our discussion on the pandemic of drug and substance abuse. I am your host, Brandon Shinemiri, and this is my co-host.
Sanmanani everyone, Magadini. I am your co-host, Nokanya Shabangana, and this is Voice It Youth Talk Show. So joining us is Dr. Ndebele, who is qualified with over 9 years of experience in the field of psychiatry, has specialty in mental health issues, and is dealing with drugs and substance abuse. So doctor, could you please give us a recap on what we touched on our last episode?
How are you, Noku, and how are you, Brandon? Greetings to the viewers. Thank you very much for having me again. Last week or the last episode, we were just essentially discussing what is a substance. We were also discussing how can we help someone who is in substance misuse or in addiction. We will be using these words interchangeably because that's what the society really understands. And also we also looked at the role of the social structure, the family and the community in somebody who will be having substance. Yes.
All right, so we've got these questions that are rolling through because our social media platform, our WhatsApp is open for questions. So we've got a lot of youth here sending questions. So the first one that I'll ask today, we've got a youth from Majamhlobe who says, how do I know if I or someone now has a drug and substance abuse problem? So we're speaking about people who go out, maybe have drinks and all that. So what he's basically saying is, how do I know if it's now a problem?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Essentially, I would want maybe to deal with the semantics. Sometimes people who are in substance don't really want to agree that there is a problem, but somebody can actually notice that there is a problem with my relative, with my child, or with my schoolmate, and these are the things to look at. So we first look at the quantity of the substance that the person is now taking. If somebody used to get tipsy with just a quart of beer and then now you see them, they are taking many quarts, even in crates form, then there is a problem. And then you also look at the time they spend looking for the substance. I've also seen someone who can even walk even 20 kilometers on foot to go and get the fix that they are used to get. And then most of their time they spend it preoccupied with the substance. Then there is also an issue there. And to also look at the amount of money that this individual is spending on substances. Sometimes if someone does not have anything to do, or they are not working, or they don't have a business that they are running to make money, then you also see that there's a lot of theft that's happening inside the home just to try and finance the drug related problem. And we also look at the other factor is continued use despite knowing the consequences of that substance. I've heard people who have taken substances and they've had very serious adverse effects, but they keep going even if they know that this thing is harming them, but they keep taking. And there is the issue of withdrawals as well. If someone is taking a substance and when they stay for some time without taking that substance, then the body quickly sends signals to say, hey, take me back. Then you will know that there is also a substance misuse related disorder. Then there is the issue of serious cravings. I've also seen the youth who have come, they get the craving late at night, even at midnight. They can jump, they can even break windows at home if there is security, just to go out and look for that substance. They can't sleep or they cannot concentrate if they don't have that substance. So these are some of the common what I would call symptoms that you can see in your family member or in your relative or a friend. Then you can tell now there's a substance related issue here.
Yeah. On that note, doctor, we've got someone here from Famona. He's asking, I've been taking drugs, but I am not failing. So do drugs really affect academic performance?
There is proven evidence, viewers, and Noku, and to also address the youth that sent in the question, there is proven evidence that most of the psychotropic substance or psychoactive substances, they cause cognitive decline. So cognition is the ability to make use of the brain in the area of your concentration, in the area of your attention, in the area of intelligence, memory, and what we call judgment and reasoning, and what we call abstract thinking, which is needed in your studies. You need to comprehend, you need to understand, you also need to maneuver through questions and pick up cues that will be during the course of the subject of study. But I have seen other individuals, the cognitive decline is very fast. You can quickly pick it up, maybe in a month or even 2 months, some even in a year. The stages are different, but eventually there is cognitive decline in certain substances. And whilst we are still on that, I've seen people believe that if you take cannabis, you become intelligent. So many scholars, they take cannabis specifically looking for the intelligence part. So yeah, but there is proven evidence that cannabis can also cause a cognitive decline, yes.
But does it help with intelligence? Is that
That
for
was
that
about to be my
specific?
Not that I'm aware of, but there is a reward pathway that cannabis causes to the brain. So the reward makes you feel good, makes you feel high, it pumps up your ego, it massages your self-esteem, so you can even be confident in your wrongness. And then you feel like, I got it. But it just gives you, it stimulates your reward system, and it works through the dopamine pathway. You are aggressive in what you are doing, but you can be doing it wrongly. Then someone takes it as, I'm intelligent, I can manipulate here, I can lie to you and you cannot catch it. And then someone thinks it's intelligence, yeah.
So we've got Candice here from Bellevue. She says she has a relative who was taking drugs, and that is how he dealt with stress, and that they made him relax. I remember on the last episode we said cannabis, for example, has got different types, and others, they make you relax. So what she's asking is, what are some of the healthier ways that she can use to replace using drugs for relaxing and getting rid of stress?
Thank you very much. You have actually touched a very important point, that some people make use of substances for recreational purposes, but they are the adverse effects that we keep hammering on. There are alternatives. We've got sports facilities that are dotted around. That's recreational as well. We have got areas like the park. We've got parks. That's recreational, where you go to the park, you're not under the influence of any substance, but you are enjoying the aroma, you're enjoying the plants, and you're just walking. That's another way of winding up, right? We also have social recreationals that are available. Family gatherings is part of recreational. You can have a family gathering without making use of substances. So they are designated or acceptable. Someone will say acceptable according to who, but I'm saying socially acceptable ways of recreation. And if someone does not really know which ones can I use, we've got a department of occupational therapy. You can come and make use of that facility. They can teach you in particular ways in which you can recreate without making use of substances. Yes.
Those are very interesting facts, Doctor. Well, stay tuned as we continue after our commercial break.
Welcome back to our second and final segment of today's show. So, Doc, there's a video from Donald Trump, by Donald Trump actually, that I saw on the internet, where he said that he does not drink alcohol, and this is because he had a friend of his that was a drunkard that used to tell him to not touch at all. Like, do not touch, don't even try and smoke, don't even try and drink, because that's the way that you can save the young people. So what's your comment of that, on that? Is abstinence really the only solution to dealing with drugs?
Thank you very much. And I know that this question actually came from the youth, because many times they always say, why am I being asked to stop? Not really. Abstinence is every clinician or every parent or every community desire. We want a drug-free community, drug-free youth, but there are ways in which some individual cannot stop, depending on how long they've taken the substance. Someone who has taken the substance for long, addiction is a cycle. So if it's a cycle, it tends to repeat. So you find the individual, even if they try and they stay clean for some time, they can relapse and go back to the substance. And then most of the times the family feels let down to say, you were clean for this long and then you're back, you are junkie and all sorts of things that we call them. But we are looking for a situation where there is harm reduction, where someone might continue taking the substance that they are taking, but reducing the quantity until they are eventually weaned off the substance. And that's where I keep saying that's where the family comes in to help the habit that has already been formed, and this individual no longer has control. Because when we are talking about compulsion, that's in addiction, you are sent to do the substance, to look for the substance. You can no longer say no. Sometimes just by looking at the bottle of Henkel already stimulates you and you want to take the substance. So harm reduction is also an option where you reduce the quantity.
On that note, let's say you can address it after your next point. Let's say I'm not yet addicted. We've got two people, one who has never taken alcohol or one who has never taken any drug or substance, and someone who is taking it, but it's not yet a problem, like it's still in the early stages. Would you say these people should stay away or they should proceed cautiously?
One who hasn't taken, I would advise abstinency, not to start the cycle. Yes. And then somebody who has been taking and have seen nothing, I always call in for an assessment with a health practitioner so that we see which drug are they taking. And sometimes we can even step them down. There are some drugs which are called gateway drugs. You know, that's the drug that opens the door for you to start taking drugs. But it's not the drug you continue on. I would give an example of cigarettes. You know, community still accepts cigarettes. So it becomes your gateway drug. When you've got a cigarette and you're puffing, and it's looking out nice. But then it's okay. But the cigarettes take you to something like you start getting into cannabis. You know, you started with cigarettes, but you stepped up to something, an escalation, that's the correct, And then from there, you want to try how does it feel to maybe make use of crystal meth, sniff crystal meth, and then you get hooked on crystal meth. You can even abandon your cannabis, or you can even continue with it up. So for someone who is already taking out, feel that they get assistance to either step down and get a much safer substance which does not have short-term, middle-term, immediate effects, or even be helped to abstinency. In that state, yes.
On the issue of abstinence, it is not that easy to abstain from something that your peers are pressuring you to do. So how do you then resist peer pressure in this case?
That one is difficult, Noko, to resist peer pressure, because you need to know that our friendships are always based on what we have in common. Most of the time, we are friends with the people that we have something in common. So if your friends are the people you drink with, and you suddenly say, I want to stop drinking, but still maintaining the same friends, it becomes difficult, because sometimes they will have to leave you when they're going for their usual joints, and then you feel left out, and then to also go back to those people that you were not hanging around with because you were saying they were pretending to be the smart men or the smart women. Maybe the door has been closed then because they used to see you hanging around with those taking substances. So you'll be in that no man's land, you get it? And then you end up going back to the friends. So peer pressure is difficult to deal with, but there is what is called cognitive behavioral therapy, which you can also be helped by the help of a third person, maybe to let go your usual friends and begin on a new slate with new people.
Right. I remember you mentioned something on maybe cigarettes being the gateway. I actually liked your example. You really look like a happy person smoking a cigarette. But anyway, my question is, how do drugs interact with each other? Because I understand you spoke about the slow escalation, which I think is something that a lot of people don't really look into. But what I want us to maybe focus on is how they interact. How can taking one drug lead you to taking another, or how does it work?
Okay, so there is what is called drug-to-drug interaction, which is always there. Drugs, they always interact. Sometimes they can work in what we call synergy, which is when you bring drug A and drug B, it's improved force, that's synergy. Or sometimes they can work in antagonism. Drug A and drug B, when they are brought together, they are pulling apart. That's the way in which drug interact. But in the area of escalation, we've got what we call a reward prediction error. This is someone who takes the drug and then it lifts them high, what we call euphoria today. So you've got memory in your brain, how you felt the first time you took cannabis. And then you try it again maybe after 2 weeks, but it's no longer giving you the same effects that it used to give you. But memory-wise, you still want that feeling you got the first time or the initial days you were taking the substance. So then there is now a gap between your expected reward and the actual reward that you are getting. So this is what we call a reward error. That reward error, to deal with it, you have to take something a bit hardcore, a bit stronger, so that it quickly takes you back to where you used to be before. So you tend to escalate, and then you drop cigarettes, and then maybe you put in a bit of crystal meth, and then it takes you, it floats you there, then you say, that's the thing. And then you take your crystal meth, and then you feel, it's no longer taking me there because of tolerance, because of a lot of things. Then maybe you now need cocaine. Maybe you now need something which is a bit stronger. So that's really what happens in the escalation.
A youth from Chabalala is asking, is it possible to recover from addiction?
It's a very good question. Yes, it is possible to recover from addiction. There are a lot of success rates that I have also seen in practice, but there is a but to it, because it also gives room to the families to know that when they send someone to a drug rehab unit, there are chances that even if they've gone through the full rehabilitation program, they can relapse. So some individuals, it can be successful, and some it can be more like a failed program. I would want to say failed program. But the family must keep trying until they get it right. Yes.
So the biggest step that someone can take is to first of all come out and say to the people surrounding them, I have this problem.
Yes.
Right. So I was speaking to someone who deals in drugs, right? Although I'm not going to disclose them because they're going to get arrested. But anyway, they were giving me privileged information.
Okay.
So this person was saying their biggest customers are school children. No matter which drug it is. I've seen even in clubs, there's a club that will have a sign written, no school children, but they are the ones that bring in the business. I remember one person who owns the club was saying, school children are the ones that bring in the business. So we've got a lot of young people actually doing more than people who are outside of school, right? So what can be done, or what can maybe schools do to actually reduce how much school children take part in substance abuse?
Okay, thank you very much. With the school children, there are a lot of things that happen to them that makes them maybe increase their substance usage. First of all, their brain, certain parts of their brain are not fully developed. I would give an example of the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in executive judgment, the ability to make a sound decision that you have looked at the pros and the cons about it. So you will realize that as each year goes by, your prefrontal cortex is also maturing and having stamina in as much as making such decisions are concerned. So with school children, when they take drugs, the fact that their prefrontal cortex is not properly fully developed, they quickly get hooked and make decisions which are not sound. That's why they keep going. So I think somebody who researched on substance knew certain ages that will keep the person coming back. And then there's also the issue of lack of experience. You know, as an adult, some days you can stop taking substances because you are telling yourself, I don't have money. So that can deter you from taking the substance. But a school child has not understood, how to save money, how to do all those things. So they can just make a decision, steal the money from the mom's purse or from the dad's purse, and still continue financing substances. So I would also need the help of educators in this, because they are the ones who really know the curricula. So they would also elaborate much further on this. But from my perspective, there is issue of idleness. When school children are doing nothing, most of the times substances come in for leisure and the peer pressure that we were discussing. So if maybe schools can also offer extracurricular activities to keep students or pupils at school, and then reduce the time in which they can have a lot of access to drugs. And there is also the issue of law enforcement agents, the police force, the legal system, to work on availability. If a drug is not available, school children will look for it and not find it. So that means we are also doing something with the substance misuse. But as long as the substance is there and children actually know that I can go to this house and I can get it, we need the law enforcement agents maybe to work with the community and curb those drug dealers maybe that will be selling the substances. Not to be there or not to sell to children under the age of of 18.
To show that
yeah.
what you're saying is practical. I remember in high school, a lot of them still do it. You have school finishing at 1, but someone gets home at 5. You understand?
Yeah.
School finished at 1, but someone is getting home at what, 5, 6. Then they'll maybe use some excuse that there was something happening at school, but between that free time, I think that's where the problem is. No.
Yes, very true. And I feel like there is pressure on the youth now because it's just, people are saying youth are taking substances, but could you also address the issue that there are adults who also take substance? So now the pressure shouldn't just be on us.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, and I know it's as the youth, I've heard a lot of my patients saying, but why are you just saying me? Because I sometimes drink with my dad. I drink with my dad. How come my dad is not here, but I am there? Yes, the burden of substance misuse is not with the youth only. It is also with the adults, and it's even spilling to the elderly. Those who are above 65, we are seeing substance misuse in the elderly. But the huge burden, if you look at it from an economic perspective, the youth, if they start getting a brain damage at that age, then it affects the tomorrow that we are looking. It should be brighter than ever. But yes, I agree, it's not the youth only in this. Yeah.
Definitely. So at the end of the day, I think what we have learned from all of these episodes and these discussions is first to identify drugs and substance abuse as a problem. You can't deal with it if you don't identify it as a problem. So thank you so much for watching. This is our final episode on drug and substance abuse. But please continue to send through your questions so that we can then, if you send through important questions, we will then call Doc back so that we can, continue to talk about this, because drug and substance abuse is really a problem that needs to be dealt with. Thank you so much for watching this episode. There's someone who used to tell me that everyone in this world has their 2 minutes of madness. I don't know how far true that is, but we will find out. Catch us on our next episode where we talk about mental health.